Ladies and gentlemen, we move to another significant milestone, the signing of a Memorandum of Understanding between ACFI and TIACA. This marks a new era of collaboration and shared commitment to advancing the global air cargo industry. May I please request all the ACFI office bearers to be on the stage. The ACFI office bearers, board members, may we please request your presence on the stage for this historic signing of an MOU between ACFI and TIACA. Ladies and gentlemen, I now hand over to Ramesh to take forward the business panel.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much. So as we give some time to the panelists to settle down, I think we have 60 minutes, as the counter says, so we'll see what best we can do in this panel. So I think I have a great panel and the first session, great topic, and I'm so happy to be here, excited. Hall is full. I think everything is looking very, very, very good and very exciting. I would like to start the session by asking each one of you, since you know the topic and you have done a lot of research yourself and you are very familiar with the topic that we want to discuss, maybe take a minute in the beginning to express your immediate impressions, the preliminary impressions as to what you feel, what you believe is the opportunity, for the topic here. I would like to start with Suendra in the beginning.
Yeah, I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Just checking the mic. Yeah, thanks Ramesh. Yeah, I mean after the electrifying morning session, I think we know that there is an opportunity for this forum to go from good to great. And this is a day where we need to express our commitments to what are the steps that we're going to take for this ecosystem to evolve to meet the, the target set by the government of India and facilitating it in the best possible manner. So I think that's what is on top of my mind.
Very good, yeah, that's good to know. Mark, your impressions?
Yeah, good. Good afternoon, everyone. Mic check, all good? Great, thank you. Pleasure to be here, obviously, once again at ACFI. Ramesh, I think I've been lucky enough to spend 8 years in India. A lot of it in the cargo world, otherwise in the other parts of aviation. I think it's time to reflect on the long way that we've actually come in the last 10 or so years in the country. And I think it gives a very solid base for a strong future that we were talking about earlier today. But I think it is important to reflect on the huge progress that I've personally seen as a visitor to the country and specifically to the global cargo ecosystem that we have here and watch as it develops. So I think for me, we've built an amazing base for a very strong future.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you, Mark, for that. Raj, your comments?
Yeah, firstly, thanks, Ramesh. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Raj, new face here, representing a company called Sequel Logistics. So we are a critical logistics company focused on only two sectors. One is valuable cargo, or precious cargo, and the other one is life sciences movement. We are a 21-year-old company founded in 2004. So I think one of the reasons why Ramesh sort of chose to have me in this panel is to give a perspective from a niche segment, which is absolutely reliant on air cargo business, given the criticality of, the movement in terms of valuables, as well as movement of, diagnostic samples, CRO shipments, etc. So we'll talk more about it as we go along, but thanks Ramesh for having me on the panel and get to learn as well as share about air cargo.
Thank you, Rajana, that was great. So I still would like to call out if Bhaskar is here among the audience. Can you, if you're here, can you please join us on the panel from Sun Pharma? All right, so we'll move on. So we move to Himanshu. So the same question, if you have any immediate comments that you want to share with us on the topic.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. So Raj, if you are the new, then I'm the newest in this panel. And we've been talking about many points since morning. So a few points. One, how do we do 10 million metric ton by 2030? And the second is, as the Principal Commissioner also said, the entire focus has now been shifted to what you need. So I think if we can match, and possibly we will be talking more about how do we do that, how we have came along from, in last 10 years, how we have achieved possibly 20% growth. Can this be sustained for another 5 years? And so looking forward to speaking more on these points, and thank you.
Thank you, Himanshu. Vineet, your perspective, which is very important from the technology point of view as well.
Yeah. Hi everyone, this is Vineet Malhotra. I'm the co-founder of Conclave Logistics. We're a technology company. There's an interesting observation I had in the first session. And there's a question for everybody, if you can guys can guess this. How many times was the word technology or digital or digitalization spoken in the first session? Any guesses here? It was spoken about 24 times. So what does it tell you? It tells you two things. Number one, technology possibly, every business is technology business, in either in the front or in the back end. The second observation I have is how important it has become, and all of us have been in several conferences and events. Technology was a filler about maybe 10 years back. It has now moved to the first session. So the importance of technology and what it can do to transform business is significant. And I hope to obviously share our experience, global experiences in this session.
Thank you. I think we'll come back to the slides as and when they can pick it up. So let me continue the panel discussion here. So given what we discussed in the morning, this question is for you, Mark, and especially from the airline industry in India, from the point of view of that topic. The geopolitical situation that we have seen over the last 2 years, that Mr. Piyush also mentioned in the morning, and those have become, some of them have been blessings, and unfortunately some of them have been major disadvantages for the airline industry in India. So what do you think of what happened in the last 2 or 3 years, and what is ahead of us for the airline industry? What would benefit us? What would actually go against us in the industry, especially from the cargo point of view?
Yeah, I mean, I think looking ahead at the next 12 months, I think we can learn from the last 12 months or 2 years to say that it's extremely uncertain, whether it's the regional geopolitical situation, which we discuss a lot, obviously, as an airline. I think you're probably more affected than we are just because of the long-haul, short-haul mix. And we're pretty confident that's going to continue to have a lot of uncertainty. But the airline industry, the cargo industry, has always been resilient, and we always find ways around it. And I think we saw that last year with the Red Sea crisis, which now, even though it sort of still goes on, it's almost like it's normal for us. So that just shows how resilient we are. Going ahead, I think we're going to, as I said earlier, we're going to continue to see uncertainty. From our point of view, we spend a lot of time looking how we'll manage that uncertainty, and I think air cargo will always find its way to overcome these challenges. At times, air cargo benefits from some of this, let's say, which is not a pleasant benefit, but it's a reality. There's always a supply and demand type situation. But going forward, look, I think we live in the most unstable, well, certainly for our generation, and I'd like to think that most of you are around. Actually, you all look a bit younger than me. For our generation, I think we live in a very, very probably uncertain time given the last 50 years, probably since the Second World War, actually. And air cargo is just going to have to be resilient and find a way around it.
Absolutely. So I think my presentation, which is now coming up, can you also put the presentation on the main screen, Brijesh? So this is about how resilient, as Mark rightly said, the air cargo industry has been. So if you look at what happened between 2000 and 2022, the industry and the trade in general globally had many challenges. But you see the growth in air cargo continued. That actually shows the resilience and the robustness of the industry itself, which is very promising. So which actually is in alignment with what Mark just said with us. And I completely agree with that view. And we've been constantly growing. And so as you see, the growth forecast is fantastic. We're looking at 4% growth rate as we see across the globe in different regions. And if you look at the region where in fact, if you look at the bottom of the table, you see domestic India, which is now being recognized as a segment by itself. So the forecast is that we can see 7% CAGR there. And And then you say that actually is one of the highest growth rates that you actually see across the globe, right? And air freight market globally, in terms of size of the industry, in terms of the revenue that the industry makes is phenomenal. 24, 25, we have seen the industry making $280 billion, which itself is phenomenally a large number. And the forecast is that by 2030, this is an independent forecast that was done by Grandview Research, so I have picked it from their report. And the size of the industry by 2030 is expected to be globally $500 billion. It's a massive sized industry for the entire trade. And the India cargo industry, I put this slide because we said in the morning from Mr. Piyush that 10 million tons possibly is very aggressive, although some of us believe that it is still doable. But then I have also come across somebody completely independent, doing independent research to say that almost 10 million tons, 9.5 million tons can happen by 2033. I assume it doesn't include the e-commerce opportunities, the e-commerce, international e-commerce cross-border, and it also does not include the transshipment as we airlines see as a big opportunity within India. If you take them into account, I see 10 million tons happening by 2030. Even if you ignore them, based on the OD, based on import-export opportunity that we have seen in the last decade or so, the independent research paper says that 9.5 million tons is definitely a possibility by 2033, which itself is a large number, right? So we have a big challenge ahead of us in terms of managing that kind of demand from India itself. And so although we said it, if you look at what happened in 2023, today we are a small market that we're looking at compared to what US is doing, what China is doing today. So we are only 3.5 million tons is what we do, right? So that's what happened in 2023, but we are growing rapidly to get to that number, which is 10 million tons by 2030. And look at the airports. Somebody covered it this morning. I'm just trying to summarize that. These are the large airports in the country. Delhi stands out. 30% of the entire country's air cargo volume is now processed in Delhi. Mumbai is the second largest, 25%. And then you have the top other airports listed here. So these are some of them are tier 1, some of them are tier 2. But the good thing is over the last 10 years or so, all the airports have done massive amount of investment, not just in the airport infrastructure, including the cargo terminal infrastructure of those airports. So the capacity, the processing capacity has gone up, handling capacity has gone up, the entire airport infrastructure investments as well as the airport processing capacity has seen tremendous growth across all these airports, which is good for us. And I foresee a lot of tier 2, tier 3 airports coming up in the coming years. Maybe some of them will beat some of the airports that you see here and get into this list if you look at it 2 or 3 years later. And look at the airports, just pre-COVID, those were the airports. And look at the airports that are expected to be active by 2033. We're looking at massive amount of airports becoming operational, and that's almost becoming a reality as all of us know. So this itself gives us a view and a perspective as to the growth opportunity that air cargo has in India, globally for sure, but within India as well. So let me then move to the next question with this in the background. So helping exports by air cargo is something I personally believe is a responsibility of the industry. So this question goes to Suvendu from the exports point of view. And I would like to come to Himanshu as well. You run a very successful GSA, MGH runs a port, you guys also run a bank in Bangladesh, and you've been helping a lot of e-commerce companies and also automotive companies across the globe. So before I come to you, Suvendu, would you like to respond to that? How the air cargo industry in India can help the exports to grow aggressively out of India?
Yeah, thanks, Ramesh. And thanks for the data points. I think you covered it really well of how global and connected to the different countries, and then it flows into India. And we see that the potential of 11.5% growth to 4%, somewhere it is going to start contributing as the quantum increases. So I think from an express contribution, there was a number mentioned of 3,000 plus freighters. I think the integrators dominate the freighter airspace, and the reason for that is the global connectivity that it demands to connect 220 countries, and for that you require at least, like FedEx has about 700 plus freighters connecting all over the world, including United States. So there is definitely a huge amount of, we call it the network business. So the network business requires global connectivity. And in spite of, you saw some of the, I think Mark spoke about the geopolitical challenges, but you see in network business with little shifts based on the challenges that you face, you can still continue and you can position yourself based on where the growth is coming from. And how does it benefit and to help connect the trade. I think this, with the evolution of e-commerce as a primary growth driver globally, and we have seen that during the COVID and plus the growth continues. I think there's a lot of opportunity in that space for integrators to really spearhead the growth of not only in India but also globally. So I'll stop at that, and then I think there's an opportunity for MGH to speak on this as well.
Yeah, Himanshu, to you.
So when we talk about the air cargo and the overall export growth, and in addition to the traditional verticals, whether it's pharma, which is primarily on air cargo, the newest vertical we are talking about basically e-commerce. And if we look at the number, we say today we do roughly around $5 billion of e-commerce exports, and by 2030 the same is expected to be $200 billion. And the interesting thing about e-commerce is, unlike other verticals, e-commerce is primarily or highly dependent on air cargo. So instead of 15%, possibly 30% of all e-commerce moves on air cargo. So as we foresee the growth in the e-commerce vertical, we believe the role of air cargo is going to increase a lot. In addition to that, second, the newest vertical which possibly will decide air cargo is the high tech and electronics. Semiconductor also I'll put in the same category, because if e-commerce is touching around $200 billion by 2030, the iPhones, semiconductor, and other electronic verticals also aiming at around $100 billion of exports. And these are the two commodities which are so sensitive. They rely predominantly on air cargo mode. So as these two industries grow, in addition to other industries, whether it's pharma, the textile and apparel, the machineries, these are going to be the flag bearer of the entire growth which I feel for air cargo.
Good, that's very interesting. Let me talk to Raj from SQL. When I first met Raj about 2 years ago, I was very impressed with the way you have kind of started the company and you've grown over the last decade or so. Very impressive growth that you've achieved as well. And from your point of view, what are the opportunities and challenges that you see for the growth of the air cargo industry within India, both from domestic as well as international points of view?
Sure. So I'll probably limit my answer to the segments that we operate, which is primarily the valuable cargo. And of course, I'll touch upon a little bit on the life sciences as well. So valuable cargo, just to get the audience up to speed in terms of the markets here. So India, I'm sure most of you know, is the largest jewelry consuming country. And the next one is China as well. So we are a huge jewelry loving country and a consuming country. But India doesn't produce any gold. So all the gold that India consumes is imported into India, primarily as refined bullion gold and bullion silver. And some of it is unrefined gold, which is called doré, which then gets refined in the country. So, and also there is a large element of jewelry making, which gets exported as well. Yeah. And US is a huge market. So from an air cargo context, so both from a domestic movement perspective, given that there's a large jewelry, and you would have seen now the companies which in the last 10 years, primarily from an unorganized jewelry buying to an organized jewelry buying, leading to, companies like Tanishq, which is anyway a leader, to now, scores of companies, getting listed and growing now. So there's a huge domestic growth anyway, to an extent of large companies growing at 15, 20%, 25%. So that's a massive opportunity on the domestic side, and companies like us primarily are catering to the door-to-door movement, also driven by e-commerce, driven now by LGD, where the newer generation is buying 18 karat gold, 14 karat gold with lab-grown diamonds, etc. So the consumption is now, also driven, keeping in mind the younger population. So that's on the domestic side. On the international side, as I mentioned, about 700 tons of gold gets imported into the country, primarily done by two companies. We are one of them. Brings is the other. So we bring in through air cargo through our international partners, and then to the clearance, vaulting, and delivery. So that's the other piece, and that continues to remain. So if you look at the last 10, 15 years trending, so it's been growing at about 4 to 5% year on year. The third element is the international exports and also imports. So India is, and Surat especially, is the diamond polishing and cutting center. So all the rough diamonds comes into India from various countries. Russia used to be a huge source, but not anymore. But most of it comes from Antwerp and Israel, etc. So that's one big piece of import of diamonds and export of finished jewelry, because it's an artisanal industry as well, and India makes beautiful jewelry. So a lot of it gets exported as well. So that's the other part as well, which is export of or contract manufacturing, which happens here and then gets exported. Of course, with the Trump tariff and all of that happening, the last 3-4 months, it's been sort of, kept on pause, where the export duties or imports into US was much lower, but now I think that's getting negotiated. So a lot of geopolitical aspects as well. A lot of countries started importing gold, bullion as well as reserves. So that has a huge element of geopolitics playing a role in the volumes of valuable cargo. So all in all, I think from an air cargo perspective, and this whole industry rests on air cargo and airlines, and you know how dependent we are with Indigo and Air India, right now. So that's basically the context. But from a growth perspective, it looks great. Domestic growth is great. Bullion is steady, and international exports and imports, again, depending on tariffs and stuff, it's sort of rough weather right now, but hopefully in this month, once tariff gets clarified, I think it will again start.
Brilliant. That sounds very optimistic to me. It looks very, very positive. One segment that has grown phenomenally over the last decade is the domestic e-commerce. We still see that growing as the companies penetrate into tier 2, tier 3 in the country. While that appears to be a guaranteed success story for India, also for the cargo industry, but in the recent past, we've also started hearing about international cross-border e-commerce opportunities, which is a small market at this stage, but we hear phenomenal numbers in terms of opportunity for all of us. I've kind of realized that opportunity when I saw the presentation from Suvendu about 2 months ago when he presented to the board. And I wanted all of you to actually also listen to that from him. So Suvendu, tell us, and how big is that opportunity? How small is it today, and how big it can actually grow and help all of us in the industry? And what is it we need to do as an industry to facilitate that growth? Tell us about domestic as well as international cross-border e-commerce.
So thanks, Ramesh. I think post my presentation at ACFI, you've reached out to me a couple of times to understand that, and I really appreciate that. I think it's one of my favorite topics as well, and it should be because of where we are on e-commerce and where is the potential for India. I think let me break this down in a few areas where we can focus on what is really required. I think if you look at our focus on increasing cargo tonnage, I think the opportunity is also in processing speed. The opportunity is also in handling small packages. If you compare to China, I mean, if you see, one of the biggest growth drivers have been e-commerce, and they have invested heavily in how do you process, millions of shipments within a very short period of time. So I think that definitely takes us to, in India for investments in global cargo hubs or global cargo infrastructure, which gives you the kind of speed and throughput which you require to be a leader in e-commerce. I think this is where we need to see India developing. FedEx definitely is evaluating investment in this space, but there has to be a lot of things that needs to fall in place for that. The regulatory environment, the screening speed at which we operate. I'll pick up a few of my favorite topics so that you get an idea of what we are talking about, or what scales are we talking about. So talking about FedEx, we process about 9 million packages every night, and which gets to different parts of the world. If you look at us in India, if we have to do e-commerce from the given infrastructure that we have, the screening ability for clearing shipments, and especially on the security side, is limited to about 400 to 500 packages in an hour. So that's where we are. And of course, we use 2D screening machines to clear shipments. We have physical screening available at all times at all air cargo spaces. If I just go 2.5 hours to Dubai, the screening, for FedEx to screen about 10,000 shipments in an hour is a normal opportunity for us. And that's because we have high-speed screening machines. Second, the transshipment permissions or multiple screening is not required. And even if it is required, the speed of screening actually negates the impact of transshipment. And this, like I said earlier, it's a network business, which means you will expect in a hub for 3 to 5 wide-body aircraft to stand at one time who can take transatlantic and go trans-Pacific as well. For all of them to come and spend not more than 90 minutes, which is what the speed is to turn around freighters, to go to different parts of the world and go to different hubs, is a normal thing, absolutely. So we need to create that environment where we can make global hubs possible, the ability to do tail-to-tail transfers, the ability to do, mixed loading, high-speed processing, and export is going to be very important for us. On this same topic of e-commerce, we see that the Indian market, or overall, including your domestic, is about $125 billion in 24. By FY30, this is going to be about $375 billion, domestic and international put together. And each will push the other in going to where it needs to be. If you look at the contribution of SMEs to this, it's not driven by few large companies. SMEs play a very important role. 79% of e-commerce customers in India believe that the growth that they expect from e-commerce is between 15 to 18% CAGR. So which is probably to your 11.5% cargo. This is going to be a significant contributor to that growth. So, we really have to invest heavily in technology, and I look at Vineet on that one. Technology drives this, the ability to clear shipments, and we were looking at, I was reflecting that if we have 35 hours for clearance, I mean, for express and for e-commerce, the life of a shipment, it's so highly perishable that in 48 hours it has to go and get delivered to one part of the world from a point of pickup. So the question of hours does not warrant us to think on those lines. But I feel and I know for sure that our Indian clearance systems is far more progressed than those numbers. I mean, we are clearing in minutes actually, outbound as well as inbound, both. I mean, inbound has changed drastically from a clearance speed perspective. and about 80-85% shipments get cleared on arrival in India. So there is definitely a different ecosystem which exists, and it needs to exist for us to speed. So just to summarize, if global hub, development is going to be a great, way forward for us, and that investments will come into India with trade facilitation, with regulatory environment facilitation, and high-speed sorting capabilities. And I gave you one number. Let me conclude by giving you another number. If you go to Memphis, which is where our global hub is and which is where the hotbed of e-commerce happens in the United States, per hour processing capability is 60,000 to 70,000 shipments. And we are at 400, 500. So our path is quite well defined, of where we need to go from where we are today. But thanks for that question, Ramesh.
Oh, brilliant. So one of the things that he shared with us that 2 months ago when he made the presentation is about the opportunity for C2C. You see, so many the Indian diaspora are living in the Western world, in Europe as well as in US. A lot of them living there actually get their foodstuff, pickles, very importantly, which is very popular food product, and also textiles, ready-made garments from India. So there are many small companies that are making for that C2C segment. But that segment is actually growing phenomenally. Satish, who's not here, but Satish is supposed to be an expert in that. I'm sure he will cover that as part of his panel. But that's a phenomenal opportunity that whole India is looking at. That is unexplored, growing rapidly in multiple dimensions actually. So when we talk about 10 millions and when we talk about these kind of opportunities, if you look at the capacity growth, although we have one of the biggest growths that's happening in the country in terms of wide body capacity that all the airlines are bringing in, and some freighter capacity that is expected to come in as well. But I believe if you look at the 10 million tons, like we talked about the airport handling capacity, which Suvendu touched on, there are some concerns. If the capacity does not grow, handling capacity, then there is a concern. We will not be able to make the 10 million tons happen. Similarly, the country needs a lot of freighter capacity as well. So if you look at that, where is the opportunity mark? And where do you think, if the airlines are not willing to invest, what is that opportunity that independent business individuals that can look at investing it and making it happen?
Great, thanks Ramesh. I'm going to step back a little bit to answer that one and go to the previous question about Indian exports, etc. And I like to use stats, and I remember many years ago when I sort of first took up my cargo position at Cathay at the time, hearing the stat that 2% of the world's goods go by air, okay, as opposed to ocean, but it's 30% of the world's value of goods. And I think that's a phenomenal stat that still stands today. And it's that 30%, right, the value chain piece, where India has the opportunity now. And it didn't have that opportunity 15 years ago, or even 10 years ago, but it has it today. And if COVID and the Red Sea and geopolitical issues have taught us one thing, it's how fragile supply chains are and how quickly they can break and collapse, and the world can really grind to a halt. So this is India's opportunity. We've seen it a little bit in the last couple of years. You're going to see it very, very big going forward. Himanshu talked about high tech, and that's what I'm going to concentrate. I think we heard a great explanation of the whole e-commerce piece, which is huge as well. But it's that high tech piece to me that is going to become very, very important for India, not only from a domestic point of view, right? Let's manufacture in India and distribute in India because you've got the biggest population in the world that's growing at one of the best GDP growths in the world. But it's that export bit as well. It's the hedge against China, as it were, right? So let's bring some of this to India. The quality that is being produced here and the inherent quality that India now has built into its education, etc., allows us to do this. And that, to me, is where a freighter piece comes in. You know, and you're probably doing the same as me. You're looking very closely at what we need in terms of freighters. We have, obviously, our baby freighters, I call them, in Indigo, and they're doing well now compared to maybe a couple of years ago, because I guess we're learning how to use them, and we're learning how we can help our shippers or our forwarders use them, and they are a challenge from a per kilo cost basis, the narrow body freighters. But I think the next step is going to be, right, you know, there is not a single wide body freighter registered in India. You said by the end of, I think your figure said, 2043, there's going to be 3,500 freighters left, in the world. India, by sure, is going to have part of that. And we know that there are big freighter operators here who come in and see this market is very lucrative. There's going to be room for everyone going forward, I think. And you and I think, have got a duty to try and build that up, and we will. So I see a very important role for freighters going forward. Just one other comment, because I do like stats. I want to come back to your piece, and obviously this comes to technology as well. Many years ago, I was lucky enough to be invited to FedEx sort facility in Memphis. I've been a few times, but the first time I was there, we drove past a facility that was the FedEx IT, as they call it those days, the IT building. And the gentleman who was showing me around, it was Greg actually, told me that FedEx had 5,000 people in IT, right? So it just shows you the importance of IT. FedEx is basically an IT company that operates some airplanes. And I'm starting to see the importance of this as well. We're a little bit behind where we are in Indigo because we've concentrated so much on our domestic passenger network. But every conversation I have internally and externally shows the kind of work we have to do. However, it's still a struggle to get resources, to get people to understand how important cargo is. As we walk into the wide-body space now, and we've started our wide-body operations in the last week or so, I think me and my team are starting to get a little bit more of a voice in the organization because you can see the value of cargo and revenue. But yeah, I think this IT piece, certainly for us, is going to be crucial, and I'm delighted that Vinny's here because it shows the importance of it. 24 times to be mentioned in the opening session just shows how much work I think we have to do and how much opportunity we have. So yeah, remember that FedEx is an IT company.
Brilliant. That's so good. So somebody said, I think one of the aircraft manufacturing companies, when they presented to us about a year ago, for the size of the economy that India is today, we have today 6 or 7 freighters is what we have in the country, owned by the carriers in the country. For the size of the economy today, we should actually have about 90 freighter fleet. And when we grow 3 times by the end of the decade, our freighter fleet should also grow by 2.5 to 3 times. That is what we are looking at. So unfortunately, we don't have a plan. Nobody has a plan to present as to how that can grow from the current number to that level, even to meet the current needs. So this kind of helps me, Mark, to move to the technology side. We also heard from Mr. Piyush in the morning that airlines feed the entire industry, but unfortunately airlines don't make money. And forwarders also work on very, very thin margins. So, and then we have seen many companies benefiting tremendously from technology to make their businesses efficient, make them profitable, and make more money, more revenue. So, Vineet, where do you think technology can help the entire industry to make us more profitable?
No, that's a good question. I mean, I'm just reminded of the statistics, and it's true. Actually, ever since commercial aviation started, okay,
and there's a study, how much has airlines made as net profit, all put together? That's about 5%. Okay, yeah. And how much have suppliers to the airlines have made? That's about 25%. So that's true, number one. But before I just come to your question.
That includes IT companies, 25%?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
That includes IT companies making.
Oh yes, 25%. Obviously. So the IT companies would be possibly doing 50%, EBITDA, and the others, whatever it is. But that's not including us, Right? Okay. I think there's a fundamental question of what has changed, and somebody asked me this, and there's a great answer. What has changed in the business of cargo in the last 20 years? And somebody answered it like this, saying the business of cargo, whether it's air cargo or any other cargo, was essentially moving and storing goods. Now it has moved away from, not moved away. What has additionally happened is, it's yes, moving and storing goods, but also moving and storing information along with it. So sometimes it precedes, sometimes it's at the point, or sometimes it's later. So I think that's a fundamental shift which has already happened. Now the degree of adoption of this shift depends on markets. So before I also answer in terms of how IIT should be used for profitability, let me just give you an India story. And I think this is something, because we do global business. Of the airports that you just showed us, okay, and if I take the 90% of the market uses technology in a manner which is, my sense is, up there in the world. And I'll compare this. The top 10 airports here, for example, use cargo community platforms. Yep. Look at the top 10 airports in the US. Not even one. Okay. So from a technology perspective, what has happened in India, obviously we're privy to it, that we're up there. We're already up there, but there's obviously next steps to look at. So when I look at it, there are 6 themes under which the technology needs to work, okay? And this is obviously known to everybody, but then these 6 themes are, and most often technology is looked at more from the first theme, which is about efficiency. efficiency means lower costs.
Yeah.
And most people essentially look at from that perspective. That's number one, obviously. The second element, and this is a question that, if you Google today and say, what is the most common problem or a statement around cargo and technology? The question would be, and everybody's asking this, where is my cargo? The visibility of where it is the second point that technology addresses. The third, and I think in the morning session we all spoke about, is about compliance. Whether it's customs compliance or any other compliance, but the fact is the law of the land needs to be made. The fourth element is security, and I think that's becoming, it's not just cyber security per se, but just cargo security is a bigger factor. And last but not the least, this is a factor which is essentially catching up, is all around sustainability. So whether it's on documents or whether you save money in terms of landside movements, etc., etc. All these themes are currently going on. And if you look at it, so there are two blocks by which these technology gets applied. One is how do stakeholders collaborate with each other, and second is essentially the internal automation of whichever stakeholder comes in, whether it's an airline or an airport or whichever. I think most of the world, the internal automation levels have really been reasonable, okay? But I think the next level is about how people collaborate with each other. How do you digitally collaborate? Now this is either at the airport or a nation level, but also it needs to now become as essentially that, because cargo moves between international cargo moves between two destinations, which are origin and somewhere on the other side, how do you essentially connect them also digitally? So in as much as I have trade corridors, how can you have digital corridors? So I think that's the framework on which this works. And I agree, each business is a technology business. I mean, in the front phase, it could be anything else. And if you apply technology against these 6 themes in a manner that suits you, I think overall, you would be in a position to make profits as you go along.
Brilliant, very good. I think that's a very good explanation. I think
Can
one
I
of the things that I
supplement
picked,
a point
yeah,
to
please.
what Vineet said? So thanks, Mark, for FedEx being a technology company. Vineet, thanks for your inputs around technology. Just remember, so very recently our founder, Fred Smith, passed away, which was just about 10 days back. And he said something about 4 decades back, which of course it became very famous, that the information about the package is as important as the package itself.
Yeah.
So, that's the criticality of technology and data around, technology and data around what we want to visualize, in the package.
Very good, fantastic. So that's why he was a visionary leader, and he managed to create something like FedEx as a massive organization. Let me then come to both Raj and Himanshu. Creating the technology infrastructure is one of the elements that we have to create in the industry to facilitate and grow the industry. In your business, on a daily basis, when you go around interacting with the stakeholders, airports, the terminal operators, the other players in the industry, what are the improvement areas that you see potentially for the industry to pick and then improve? Let's say within India, in the Indian airports, maybe we can possibly focus on tier 1 airports to begin with. Let me start with Himanshu.
So before even I talk about the improvements, and as you've spoken about the demand and supply, basically, the demand will be generated, but whether we will be able to create that supply or not. So today, Mark and you both represent 2 of the biggest airlines of India, and we do have some freighter operators, but are we doing enough for them to survive for next few years? So as a policy making decision, we possibly have to see what more can be done to whosoever freighter operators we have in country, and we do have few. In terms of are we giving them the enough chances? If we take a clue from China, which offers greater subsidies, sometimes it comes to around $20,000, and if you convert that to a 737 or a narrow body aircraft, it's almost $1 a kilo. So which helps them to at least sustain the initial phase of survival. So can we, as a part of industry, can we do something? Or can we create some opportunities for them? And even when we see today in the air cargo, it's part of an ecosystem. And that ecosystem starts from a seller or an exporter. Today the cost, and even your data suggests that it's only 3 airports in India, Delhi, Mumbai and Bangalore, they almost carry more than 70% of the cargo, which means where the demand is getting generated from all over India. It's from Indore, it's from Panipat, it's from Jammu and Kashmir, and it's from Karur. So, which means they all have to push their product to connect in one of these 3 airports. And the cost of bringing the goods to these airports and then connecting on air and finally getting delivered, whether it's e-commerce or any other demand which is generated by the ecosystem, is very expensive. And if I just give you a number, the 77% of the entire cost is on India's side today. So if I'm sending one packet from Karur or from Indore to somewhere in East Coast or delivering in New York, the 70% of cost gets consumed within India, which includes shipping from Indore to Delhi, Delhi doing the custom clearance, and then the air freight. So there is a quite big scope here when we talk about getting better as far as the cost is concerned. And then I think few more policy related points. One is the return management. Nobody knows if I send some goods, how do I bring it back? And it's written nowhere in the policy. So can I destroy if something gets rejected by FD in USA? So there are lots of areas which are not known to those people who will be responsible for creating the demand. Because we, whosoever is sitting in this room, we are the service providers to them. But demand has to be created, or they have to be facilitated in a way so that they create more, and we help them to deliver. So these possibly points where I believe improvement is needed.
Right. So this leads me to my next question. In terms of the policy changes and intervention that we need from the concerned ministries in India, both in short-term and long-term point of view. So let me ask you this: what are the support that we can ask for from the government in terms of making changes to the policy to further facilitate the growth of air cargo? Tell me short-term and long-term both.
Yeah, thanks, Manish. So I think air cargo growth, both export and import, is tied somewhere to what can we do in the short, medium, and long term. I think to keep it very to the point, I think if you look at transshipment today, we have transshipment on the domestic as well as on the international side. The time taken to do transshipment across multiple touch points is about 8 to 12 hours, which is enough for me to fly to the nearest international airport, which is, let's say, Dubai, and come back into a particular city, and I can beat that 8 to 12 hours time. So I think we need to take these things into, when we talk about growth, we have to take these things into account. I think this one, definitely everybody is working on, and I think the regulators are taking a look at how can we make that happen, because this has got to do with the freighters, Mark talked about the freighters coming into India, companies owning freighters or using freighters, as well as the global hub concept that I touched. Everything revolves around this. And this has got huge domestic and international impact. The second thing is our processing speed, which requires high-speed screening machines, which are not approved for cargo in India. So once we get that, we can touch from a single machine can produce about 3,000 to 3,500 packages an hour, which means you're talking about 7 to 8 times faster than what you are doing on the same space. Yeah. So your space will not be a challenge, but your processing speed. And that should give you the, the investment in sorting hubs and other stuff, which nobody would make on the international side with a speed of 400, 500 packages. So I think these are the two. On the custom side, I think there's a lot of changes which has happened. EDI has been very facilitative. I think the movement of containers to customers' place, that has been very good. The impact of AEO, basically AEO's World Customs, policies being adopted in India. ULD is moving to customers' places, track trace allowed at a ULD level, need to flow at a package level also. There are revolutionary technology around where the packages are and how it needs to clear and stuff like that. And then the most important, I think Himanshu spoke about, there is no return policy for India. There is no 5 days. So globally, it's a 5-day return. We don't have that in India. So we need to, that declutters our infrastructure. That becomes supremely important. So I think these 3-4 areas I'll pick up, and I'm sure my other colleagues will also talk about a few more. Thanks.
Fantastic. I think what you talked about transshipment being more efficient in Dubai is music to Mickey's ears. Mickey is sitting here. But Mickey, we are in discussion with Dubai government to introduce double screening in Dubai. You heard me? I'm just joking. So that we can be more competitive. So this brings to my last question to all of you. Since Mr. Piyush talked about actionable items coming from this event, the whole event, and very importantly from this session as well, I would like to ask each one of you, starting from Vinit, please tell us 3 actionable things that we need to recommend to the industry, to the stakeholders, very importantly to the government, to make sure that we achieve what we would like to achieve. Vinit.
From our perspective, as I said, India currently is at in terms of applying this technology across airports, it's there. But there's been an initiative for long, which has been discussed, which is this National Air Cargo Community Systems. And with so many airports essentially using it, how do you essentially create a grid? And not just that grid there, we are doing a project in Middle East, where we are essentially connecting airports, ports, land ports, all of them put together. So if there could be an initiative around this, I think from that perspective, we would possibly then be in completely differently. So that's something that I would want the government to do.
That's a very good idea. Very good, fantastic.
From my perspective, first is the subsidy or any other benefit which can be extended to the current cargo carriers. Even we do see many foreign carriers enjoy fifth freedom, and they eat up the substantial, cargo. That's one. 2 is the transshipment, because if you see Dubai, the substantial part of their air freight is sea air business. Yep. So as we will have new airport in Navi Mumbai. That's one. 2 is the transshipment, because if you see Dubai, the substantial part of their air freight is sea air business. So as we will have new airport in Navi Mumbai, and I was talking to someone last evening, this is the optimum capacity that airport will have with approximately 10 million metric ton, and they are starting from 1 million. So where Nhava Sheva is one of the biggest port, can we talk about some policies where Nhava Sheva and Mumbai airport, similarly Chennai and Chennai airport, can handle sea air facility, the sea air transshipments, not only from the SAARC countries, but also from Vietnam, Cambodia, Myanmar, because the sea transit from those countries to Chennai is roughly around 10 days. And then if we can create a hub in Chennai or in Nhava Sheva and then connect the air freight from those to Europe or to USA, I think we will have some growth from that aspect. So these are the, I think, two possibilities.
That is absolutely fantastic. So I also believe that sea to air, to some extent air to sea as well, is also a great opportunity. So Chennai, Navi Mumbai/Mumbai and Trivandrum is also another place where this is a possibility. I think the colleagues from Adani airports are here. So Bala is already working on it. So make a note, Bala. So there are Adani airport colleagues sitting here. I'm sure they've made a note. So since I work with their organization, Trivandrum is also one of the ports that we identified. That's a great opportunity that we should be looking at. Brilliant, fantastic. Raj, to you, the same question.
So as a user of air cargo and as a door-to-door, express, secure supply chain company, so what we basically, the challenges that we face is number one is definitely infrastructure, at the key airports, at peak hours. I don't know how many of you have visited the air cargo counter between 12 midnight to 4 a.m. So, you would see the reality there, right? So, and it doesn't matter whether it's e-commerce, whether it's general cargo, it's valuable cargo. Sometimes we see how, gold and life sciences shipments are out there, not a place to keep your foot there, right? So I think one key element is infrastructure and capacity. I think that's, it's just, bursting at its seams. Number two, of course, information technology that we talked about. Most of us who are, and I see this gradient of technology immersion, very starkly, which is companies closer to the consumers are far more tech, tech related and, on the scale, but those who are away from the consumers are still catching up. So for us, when we give the consignment to the airline or the air cargo is where it's a black box. So we don't know what is happening inside, which is offloaded, when is it coming out. And that becomes a bit of a challenge when the end consumer would like to know. Let's say, a CRO company or a diagnostic company, a terminally ill patient, the biopsy sample is moving and the doctor is waiting for the report to be analyzed, for him to operate, right? So that's the kind of shipment where you would want to know exactly where the shipment is, what is happening, and so on. So that's where information becomes absolutely critical. So if you ask me, one is infrastructure, which is basically capacity, and then information system. We can probably look at having a common protocol of APIs, which most of us are using in our industries where create a certain set of common protocols and APIs calling for information. The moment somebody signs up with an airline, we can just go and download the API protocol and start establishing the information connect. So these are very few things at this point of technology. I think they are very much easily implementable. So these are two key things that I think we can
these are very, very good points. To you, Mark.
Great, thanks, Ramesh. Just quickly, I've got three as well. Okay, there's been a lot of, I think, improvements in process when it comes to customs, etc. One thing I'd like to see is actual consistency across the country. I often talk to shippers, for example, in China who will favor a particular airport over others because of the interpretation of rules that are read the same everywhere but interpreted differently. So I think consistency would be great to build upon the improvements that we've made in terms of legislation, etc. An appeal to all of my airport friends to prioritize cargo. Again, it comes down to the infrastructure piece. We don't get the best space allocated by our footprints for cargo. So airports, please prioritize cargo. I know you try, but sometimes, it is tough. It is tough, and I appreciate customers having to put up with it. And linked to that, when it comes to infrastructure, the whole off-airport piece, it can be done safely. I was with Glyn yesterday, and he'd just come back from Hong Kong. As he said to me, that's a pick up and drop model everywhere around the world. So this off-airport, green channels, known shipper, really look at it. I'm convinced it being done safely. And the fact that the US and the EU permit this, for origin cargo from that place tells you that it can be done safely as well. So those are my sort of three wish lists, quite big. And I know it's taken a long time to get many of them done, but let's keep going on it.
Brilliant, very good. I think Cyrus will agree with you more than anybody. I don't know where he is. Okay, back to you, Sweta.
Sorry, I know we are on top of the hour. Ramesh, very well conducted session. I save myself from repeating, but transshipment, high-speed automation, processing, we have the space. We need the right technology to make sure that we have that kind of growth. The regulators and the industry coming together to facilitate this, which is what I covered earlier. I think these are some of the key points. I'm sure you have noted on the e-commerce as well as on that, so I will save myself from repeating. But this is going to be the game changer for us in the industry.
Brilliant, fantastic. So we have a couple of more minutes for the questions from the audience. Before that, I just wanted to share with you this session is sponsored by Skyways. Thank you, Skyways team. we will also recognize them at the end of the session. So let me then open this to the audience. If anybody has any questions to any panelist, they'll be more than happy to
I have a
address.
question for you, Ramesh, and for Mark. My name is Cyrus Dupara. I am
We
from
want-
the Donata commercial team.
Yes.
How do you see India and UAE in terms of imports and exports in the future and in the next quarters, considering that Air India and Indigo have a very strong positioning in the UAE?
Okay. Let me allow Mark to answer that.
Talking specifically with the UAE or?
With the UAE, yes.
Yeah, well, the UAE is going to continue, I think, to play a very important role. I mean, you just need to see the diaspora of India that lives and pretty much runs the UAE. So I think you'll continue to see that very, very strong. If you look at just internally for us, anytime you add capacity, and I mean cargo capacity, not necessarily passenger, but certainly on passenger, to the UAE, the demand is there. So it's underserved at the moment. We know that, and we know there's a lot of discussion going on around that. So I'm very bullish about that. I really am. I'm also bullish about the fact that one of the challenges we have in India is the imbalance, right? And that's why freighter operators find it hard here. There's a lot going out to the east, not so much coming in, and then there's a lot going that way, not so much coming in that way. I think we'll see a bit more of a balance as well, hopefully as well. And that's not just for the UAE, but for other parts of the world. That trade balance is going to be very important going forward.
Great, yeah. UAE is the second biggest trade partner for us, so that will continue to be on the focus, for India for sure. Any more? Yeah, please.
Thank you very much.
Can you pass it on to him, please?
I'm Colonel P.K. Chugh. I'm the CMD of the Police Dog Center India. We are preparing dogs for cargo screening and many other purposes. The point I want to highlight, I touched upon last year also during the annual conclave, that Suvendu just talked about the challenges, especially with regard to the speed, the processing, transshipments, and these are the real things which other speakers have also spoken about. I'm a member of the committee formulated by the Bureau of Civil Aviation Security to formulate a forward-looking policy or SOP for employing the dogs in cargo screening. When I go to BCAS, they say that there is no such demand or pressure from the industry. When we come to the industry, they say that the BCAS has the mandate to formulate such policies. I think there is a big divide. And we are looking at a huge gap with regard to processing, increasing the speed by employing the cargo screening dogs, which the entire world is doing. So perhaps we have to give a serious thought on it by communicating with the BCAS and coming out with the policy where we can employ dogs and the associated technologies, where without opening the containers or consignments, we can screen those things with 100% proficiency. Thank you.
Absolutely, yeah. So I agree with that. I think you did raise it in the last session as well. As much as ETT does that work, the canines also do that. We do recognize that as industry. We have some work to do with BCAS. We'll do that. We'll take it up with them. Thank you for that. Any more, please?
Can I respond, Ramesh?
Yeah, please.
Sorry. First of all, thanks for that point. For the last, I think, half a decade or so, we have been using dogs for ID detection in all our facilities. So I would like to invite you to see if you want to see the process. But we are well on our way on that one, and BCAS as well as other regulators have seen the process, what we do. See, safety is not about policies only. Safety is about when you run your own aircrafts, you have to ensure that that is your number one concern. And we take great, and customs is also working very closely to have, canines as a method of screening. I agree with you, it's not primary as yet, which is what we see most of the part of the world, especially in the Western world. But we are working with BCAS to see if we have an opportunity to make that as a primary method of screening.
You're very right. With regard to the work which is so far being done, if I can update that, there has been a SOP made in compliance to the ICAO guidelines. Okay. So BCAS has done a significant work, and I being the expert member on the committee, I can vouch for it. The only thing, someone needs to bridge this gap so that the industry can raise a voice that they really need it. Because BCAS is still not convinced that, whether the industry can meet these things. There are stakeholders who can deliver on these things. So there is little apprehension. So the SOP is there, right, as per the international guidelines, and FedEx is definitely an international player and has been employing MSA and other worldwide And I'm well aware of all the policies, and I mean, we can really show the way. And in this field, anybody who wants to take up this further, and we have recommended, even if it is not possible for the timing as primary screening, at least allow them as a screening, secondary screening, and for the transshipment, which is already recommended. And half of the work further is that they have recommended for CISF to do this cargo screening. But CISF doesn't have the knowledge and wherewithal to deliver on this thing. So from last 1.5 years, the letter is there, instructions are issued, but there is nothing on ground happening. So what we have recommended is the third party canine program, where the standards are set as per the TSA's guidelines, and the service providers can give based on the certified dog teams.
Good point, sir. We will definitely take your help. I
Thank
think
you.
ACFI is well positioned to take it up with the concerned department. One, can somebody move the mic there, please?
This is Hemendra Kumar. I'm from the BBC Brinks.
Oh.
We are on the same line with Sequel, where we do the valuable shipments. I want to just add value on the transshipments, what you have been speaking about. The transshipments, we have been looking into the foreign to foreign transshipments as well as the foreign to DTA transshipments. But there is a huge scope which is available where we need to really look into the export transshipments also, where we need to come up with an observable level from all the other airports, getting into a transshipment hub where it can be built up to the master available level. That's the real regulations which has been really needed at this point of time. That
I
is
agree.
one, yeah,
I agree.
that
I
is-
think
that
this is
one part.
D2I consolidations in one of the Indian hubs, right?
One of the Indian hubs. That's the more value focus which have been seen in this. And moreover, the regulatory angles which has been seen in the past, because once we put up the policies to the government, it seems to be more faster and it's more equipped, and we had been able to do it. For example, we had been trying about to put across the courier regulations for the valuables, which has been done and it has been approved by the way, and we had been able to take the valuables under the courier mode. This is one of the sectors that had been seen, and even the hand carry, one of the areas where we lies about, it's an onboard courier. It's an onboard courier which we really need to work on with that, where the regulations need to be fit onto all the airports. Because the faster regulations, which is really needed now, like the NFO, because we have a thin line. We speak about cargo, we speak about the courier. But it's the gray line which is available where we need to really fix it up is for the e-commerce, which we really needed. Regulations need to be set up for the e-commerce, where we need to be seeing in the other angle of it, even in the infrastructure-wise, even the regulations-wise, where we need to really put across in the different way. So these all is the other gray areas what I've been seeing, where the regulations needs to be really strengthened in order to bring into the other levels.
Very good points. Anybody would like to respond? Although we agree with that. Yeah, Himanshu.
As far as e-commerce is concerned, just last year, I think that was the first time when during the budget, the government of India has included the e-commerce as a part of their budget program, and they have launched e-commerce policy. So where even it has gone up to the level of district level. And recently, if you have followed up, they are also talking about creating e-commerce exports hubs. So the overall idea of government here is, can these e-commerce exports hubs be created in each district, not even airport, so that the entire semblance and alignment can happen from the district level to the delivery point. So e-commerce, I think, is getting some kind of notice, and accordingly the policies also have been formulated. That's what a bit which I can talk about e-commerce policies.
Yeah, no, it's an important point. I think we must take it up. So it is 2 o'clock, time for lunch, and I'm surprised that you're not hungry and you're not trying to leave the room, which is very good. So one question from Vipinji, last one.
Thank you. Great session. I don't want to say more, but we all come here, discuss, but unfortunately we are still at the same level. So I have one small suggestion. I think there are many presidents from different organizations are sitting here, ACFI and others. I think we need to put more pressure on the government how to reach 10 million tons. Every exporter, everyone is doing their best. India export will not go anywhere else. It will be exported, even if with difficulties or with smooth process. I think we all 10, 20, 15, or whatever setup we have, ACFI, ACFI, CHA, whatever it is, let us put all on one paper, how can we reach? And it is only transshipment which can help us to grow at 10 million. Otherwise, there is no scope. I think we have been discussing air to sea, sea to air, Dubai model, Singapore model, Memphis model. It will not work. I mean, the time we are taking. So I have a humble request. Let us put together, all the association together, make one line subject, how to reach 10 million tons. Let it be signed by 20 associations, and then see how we can build more pressure on government. I think we all well aware about the things which we are discussing. Of course, it is good to know a little more on this. So this is my only request, and thank you very much once again.
I agree with you. Thank you very much. So with that, let me conclude this session, and let me then hand it back to my host. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please, a massive thank you to Ramesh and our panelists, Suvendu, Mark, Rajkumar, Himanshu, and Vineet. It was a fantastic, thought-provoking session. I'd also like to take this opportunity to give a big shout-out to Skyways Air Services Limited for sponsoring this session. Thank you for your support, Skyways.